Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I wanted to kind of just share about like my journey to not only Islam itself, but my journey with regards to implementing Islam as well, right? Like, kind of like growing up, of course, like a lot of us here in America, we may have grew up in a Christian household. I grew up in a Southern Baptist household. My grandmother was in church every Sunday. This kind of reminds me of the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam, Abraham, because he grew up amongst individuals who didn't worship the one and only God. And, I just relate that to myself just in a household in which I grew up. And so, within a community, you know what I'm saying, you had different organizations and different nations and tribes, I like to call them, instead of using the negative connotation of gangs. So I grew up, in a community that, you had gangster disciples on one block, whether it was going, further south back toward on Cottage. Then you had the Stones that had a few blocks. You had Mickey Cobras. You had Vice Lords. So all of these different nations and tribes was within one vicinity. You know what I'm saying? And I had an opportunity to kind of understand them all. You know what I'm saying? That brought me to a realization that, anything that places significance on anything that supersedes the laws of God, then of course this is how we allow chaos and confusion to creep into society. But being amongst these particular nations and tribes, I began to learn about Islam, especially when it comes to the Black Peace Stones and the Mickey Cobras and the Vice Lords, right? And I don't want to make this seem that that Islam is something that's just catered or geared towards these particular nations and tribes, because it's for all of humanity. Because, whether you're gangster disciple or you're Black disciple, Islam is something that we all should embrace. So, I can remember, I met a teacher at school. I went to Dixon Elementary. I went to Burnside up into the 7th grade on 91st in St. Lawrence. And then unfortunately, I ended up being kicked out of there. And I ended up going to Dixon Elementary School on 83rd in St. Lawrence, And so there was a teacher there. Her name was Miss Breckenridge. She was a part of the Nation of Islam. And around this time, Malcolm X's movie had came out, right? And my aunt, she ended up taking me to see this movie. And, when I saw that, I was nationed out. Not understanding at that particular point in time that Malcolm left the nation, right? So, I went through some formative years of learning about the Nation of Islam. I then began to, study Moorish Science. And then I ultimately took my Shahada over 20 years ago in a Dallas County holding cell. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. And I was a Muslim. And it took me years before I began to implement Islam, because I accepted Islam because I believed that there was no God but Allah, and that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his last and final messenger. And for that reason and that reason alone is the reason I accepted Islam wholeheartedly. Practicing it was something totally different that took me a lot of formative years. It took me not wanting to humble myself to the point that God humbled me. Because, if we don't humble ourselves, then Allah will humiliate us and humble us. And so it was back in the Dear Small Crips, incarcerated in the Illinois Departments of Correction, where I began to learn to practice Islam. Alhamdulillah. I learned how to offer the salat because I was clueless. I had no understanding of how to offer salat. Even when we read in the Bible and we study each and every prophet or the prophets who worship God, they all bowed their foreheads to the earth. And so, this is the proper way to worship the one and only God. And so learning this and learning how to do it properly, it took some time. But one thing that I learned over the course of learning how to implement the salat or the prayer is that if we, like the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said in a hadith, that if we come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala walking, he comes to us running. So, these were the formative years. I met some good brothers who were patient with me and taught me a lot of things about Islam. And I finally came home. You know what I'm saying? Because being incarcerated, you know what I'm saying? It's like we're alone, and just because we're incarcerated doesn't mean that all we have to do is to turn to religions or things of this nature, because there's other things to get involved with as well. I just think that those individuals who are conscious, you choose to utilize the time wisely. So, I came home. My dress was different. My speech was different. And it was like, when I was at my very lowest, when I didn't have, Allah provided and was sufficient. So I ended up coming home. I ended up linking up with Masjid in Chicago on 89th and Stony Island. And they were very helpful with regards to helping me go and obtain a paralegal certificate from Chicago State University. And I could remember one day when I was walking home, I had my thobe on, I had my kufi on, and you know what I'm saying, alhamdulillah, I'm walking up 87th Street, you know what I'm saying, from the Masjid on Stony Island, and I'm headed west on 87th Street to my to my people's crib over on 91st off Cottage Grove. And as I was walking, you know what I'm saying, because it was like, I was home. I didn't have no job, no income coming in, and you know what I'm saying? It was like I was trying to get my life in order, and the streets was heavily calling me because, going back to the streets was easy. So as I'm walking up 87th Street, an Impala, 96 Impala drive past me, right there where Mary Nook is at, and pulls over. He's like, Assalamu alaikum, Ak. And I run to this Impala, right, to, see who this is that's greeting me. And when I got there, it was two brothers in the car, two Muslim brothers. And, man, he's like, man, where you going? Ak, what you doing? Why you walking out here? You know what I'm saying? Did he lie? I had no car. You know what I'm saying? So I had to move around. You draw? So, and I tell him, man, I'm just getting home, and you know what I'm saying, that the masjid is, you know what I'm saying, I'm trying to stay near to the masjid and around the believers. I need a job, you know what I'm saying? So this is when Ak unfolded to me, you know what I'm saying, alhamdulillah, like, man, Ak right on 73rd and Stony, right across the street from the from Mosque Marianne. He was like, man, I own a couple different businesses. You should come up here, holler at my brother-in-law, and we get you situated with a gig. Alhamdulillah. So, man, alhamdulillah, he give me his number, And I think it was like the next couple of days. I ended up going up here. I met his brother-in-law, and I ended up getting a job. And when I went up there, Ak owned the Boost Mobile, dollar store, furniture store, and a T-Mobile that was all like connected, right? And alhamdulillah, I ended up running the T-Mobile for Ak. And man, Ak paid me damn near $1,000 a week, because I pretty much ran the store, and it was beautiful. You know what I'm saying? I was able to offer salat. And he paid me in cash. So I guess my point of sharing this with you is because, you know what I'm saying, like, it's important that as a Muslim walking a particular way of life, it's important that we stay close to the believers. And even at times when we feel as though we may not have, or when we feel as though that, you know what I'm saying, we may be broke, or we may not have enough money, Allah is sufficient. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sufficient for us, because he will provide. It's just that we as human beings have to do what it is that he asks of us. And as long as we do what it is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to do, and we're striving towards excellence, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will show up and show out. So, you know what I'm saying? Just over the years, my journey, you know what I'm saying, to Islam, you know what I'm saying? And just even with my journey that I went through to even begin to practice Islam and implement it in my life, because it was Islam that saved my life. You know what I'm saying? Because prior to Islam, you know, a lot of us may feel as though it's okay to fornicate. We may think it's okay to indulge in intoxicants, whether it's alcohol or all these other types of drugs. We may think it's okay to, you know, fornicate and sleep with these different women, right? Because this is what our society, and this is what being westernized means, right? So I guess this is what was programmed into me. And it was Islam that deprogrammed me and reprogrammed me to think, you know what I'm saying? To change my way of thinking, to change my heart, you know what I'm saying? With regards to how I viewed worldly things, how I viewed life as a whole. You know what I'm saying? It was Islam that gave me the criteria to determine what was right and what was wrong. You know what I'm saying? I mean, yeah, we know what's right and what's wrong innately, but we can also be programmed to think that something that's illegal is lawful, right? And to give you an example, like, you know what I'm saying? Something that's been legalized, but that's unlawful. I can name several things that America has made legal, but it's unlawful. Alcohol, for instance, you know what I'm saying? It has been made legal, but it is unlawful. You know what I'm saying? Homosexuality. America has made this legal, but it is unlawful, right? So, you know, alhamdulillah, I just wanted to share that with you. And I hope that, you know, it was beneficial for some, you know what I'm saying? Even if it's just one individual that this message may reach out and touch. You know what I'm saying? If you have any questions, concerns, you know what I'm saying? If you like the video, like it. If you dislike it, dislike it. You know what I'm saying? If you have any comments or questions, please leave them, you know what I'm saying, in the comment section. And please subscribe to the channel too as well. And, you know, stay tuned. Assalamu alaikum.